Yeah, I was chatting with Amanda, thanking her for coming. So I would like to invite to the stage, I see Itamar here, the co-founder and CEO of Argent. I see Yoav Weiss, who is a hacker. That's your title, right? A hacker leading the initiative of Account Abstraction in the Ethereum Foundation. Mark Smargon, the co-founder and CEO of Fuse. And Lukas. Where's Lukas? I just saw him. Oh yeah, there we go. Lukas, who is one of the founders of Safe, previously known as Gnosis Safe. So yeah, good morning. How are you? All good? Good. Yeah? Did you make it on time? Almost. Yeah. Wait, my notes are, okay. So our panel is called Account Abstraction, essentially in the future of custody. And I think if you are on crypto Twitter at all, then the term account abstraction is like taken off significantly over the past couple of months. This is, I guess, partially because of you. I guess partially because of everyone who's sitting here talking about it. And so I think the promises of account abstraction, they range from, solving some of the biggest issues of crypto, like, seed phrases and, self-custody, to creating Web 2-like experiences with like smooth UX and people who don't even know they're using a blockchain, right? These are some of the promises. And I read on Twitter yesterday that account abstraction knows the true identity of Satoshi. Like, I'm serious. Someone tweeted it. It was me. Anyway, so let's start with sort of like, what is account abstraction? Do you want to go like very briefly say, like, I think there's like, it's not the same view for everyone here. I hope it's going to be a bit different. So how do you see it and what is your approach? Do you want to go, Lukas?
Yeah, I can start. So I see account abstraction as basically abstracting away all the logic of an account from the protocol to smart contract level. That's like the nonce, that's the signature validation, etc. So essentially making every account in Web3 a smart contract account or a smart contract wallet. We've been building smart contract wallets at Safe for like more than 4 or 5 years now, kind of starting with multi-signature wallets. That's what we saw as like the first use case. We also knew that we need to get like to the smart contracts, like a lot of value initially, so that people actually trust it, and it's easier to acquire first like a few bigger users than like all the like mainstream users that come with maybe smaller amounts. So we started building multi-sig, and now kind of the next step will be providing what we've built in terms of like infrastructure to all the developers, so protocols, APIs, SDKs, etc. So they can take advantage of that and build their own account abstraction wallets on top of that. Yeah.
Cool. Mark?
Well, actually, it's an interesting panel because when we started in 2019, we wanted to build a blockchain for business, and back then it was really monolithic. You just sign transactions. We actually used the Gnosis Safe in the first version, 4 years ago, before it was hacked. This is like when it was hacked, that's when we knew we can trust it, after it's...
Wait, Gnosis Safe never got hacked. Parity got hacked.
Parity that used Gnosis multisig.
No, it was different contracts.
Okay, no, it was the early multisig contracts.
It was Parity. Yeah, it was Parity. Anyway, yeah.
Anyway, so we're using, we were thinking how a business will use it, how a consumer will use it. We understood that consumers, they can't invest in a token, to use a protocol. And this was the basically how it works to this day. And also today, there's about 30 million users in DeFi and in we can call it Web3. How it will look like when there's billions of users. So today, most of our pretty much all of our back office is running on Safe, and pretty much all of our consumer interactions are actually running on Argent contracts. We've been using them since 2019 because we really didn't want to build our own standard. So the way we see it, consumers will interact, maybe it will be L1, maybe it will be L2. Consumers don't really care. When you're using Stripe, you don't make the choice to use Stripe. Usually behind the scenes, somebody's making this choice for you. Stripe, Visa, somebody is behind the scenes paying fees for you. This is how the real world works, right? So consumers are used to sending money for free. You know, how do we build an experience like that? So, and how do we not, you know, build it in a way that, you know, we just create a black box and nobody knows what's happening inside. So I can talk about like a lot about this, but that's basically the way we see account abstraction.
Well, do you want to go? I would just say that, you know, Mark saying that Fuse is using both Safe and Argent. I think this is one of the most beautiful things about this ecosystem. You are incentivized to use the work of others, and yeah, that's why I think, you know, it is exploding and progressing at such fast rate. So, Yoav?
Yeah, so usually when I'm asked what account abstraction is, I have a long technical explanation of what parts of the accounts I think we should abstract, but let's start from the high level. We want to bring the next billion users. That's something that we really like to talk about. And I don't think the next billion users are going to write 12 words on a piece of paper. It's just not how the world works. Nobody is so. I mean, it works for us. It's not going to work for the next billion. So account abstraction is a way to simplify the process and to remove key management. That's the most basic thing. Beyond that, there can be many features that help you manage the wallet, help you help you set certain limits, help you do gas abstractions so that like Mark said, someone else can pay for your transactions. But all of that comes later. First, let's make it simple for users.
Abstracted for users.
Yes.
Itamar, do you want to?
I'm trying to find a different one, but I think I'll use the one actually, Lukas, you used a few days ago or yesterday, which is account abstraction is about having a programmable account. If you can put logic in an account, you can do anything. And we were promised programmable money, so that's what we need. And if you compare to the real world, you can have a plastic wallet or leather wallet in your pocket, you have cash. If someone has it, they have it, and that's a private key. That's an EOA. We don't put our money there. We put our money in bank account, which is what? It's software that can protect it, make it easy, or you can schedule transfer, security feature, anything you can think of. The difference is that software is in a blockchain, so we can't tamper with it. And if you can program it, you can do anything. We started with recovery. Then we say, can we program something around gas abstraction? And Julian, my co-founder, will say, yeah, we can do that too. And then we can think of inheritance. We can think of anything because we can code it.
Amazing. So I think like account abstraction, it existed for many years, right? Like smart contract wallets, Argent, Safe. It existed for many years. So technically we had account abstraction. Nothing really changed on the technical level, I guess, yet, right? We have some EIPs and proposals to standardize some of these processes. But still over the past couple of months, like all of crypto Twitter is on this. The mimetic value is sort of like all over. And if you listen to Amanda's talk just before, there's such immense value in these, in the propagation of these memes and for more people to talk and learn about account abstraction. So I want to ask you maybe like briefly, what do you think changed over the last couple of months?
I mean, funnily enough, account abstraction is part of the initial vision of Ethereum. It was kind of like descoped at the beginning, and because it's really hard, like it's a breaking change to bring it back. It's like it took so many years and so many tries and different EIPs, and like now it feels like with EIP 457 we have a Schelling point that we can rally around the community to finally get towards account abstraction. But I think what really changed is obviously EIP becoming more kind of mature, ready for being adopted. And then it was also FTX kind of showing the value of self-custody, reducing counterparty risk, trying to move more people from custodial services to self-custody, but realizing like the way we do currently self-custody is not enough. We need to improve on security and UX. And it's maybe also the bear market, but helps focus away from like all the shiny like DeFi yield optimization kind of things to the more critical infrastructure things that we should fix first before we open the gates. And I think all of this combined now creates this kind of perfect storm for this meme to pick off and the excitement around account abstraction. And I'm super glad that this happened.
So the lack of food tokens with a billion APY.
So I'll just add that maybe without sounding pretentious, there's not a lot of companies or builders in 2019, or I'm talking about 2019 because we started Fuse back there, but going even to 2017, nobody did anything complicated, too complicated with contracts. It really was the first experiments, and I remember looking at the gas station network back then, those ideas and people saying fee abstraction, but actually building it back then was very experimental. Today, we need to build a new narrative. Let's bring billions of people, and we can't let everyone build their own, standard or best practice. And the whole point here is standardization. So that's what I'm happy to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think everything was pretty much said already, but so having a standard that doesn't require a consensus change makes a huge difference, because so account abstraction standards at the chain level, at the consensus level, have been proposed and discussed in 2016, and it's really hard to create a consensus around something that doesn't have traction yet, and that there is no agreement, no general consensus on how it should work. So by having a standard that you can use on any chain, without getting permission, without getting consensus, just make it opt-in. It makes it easier to start experimenting and getting adoption. And then after creating this standard, we've been working hard to create awareness for it, so that more people start using it, and we can actually get results for this experiment and decide what should be enshrined in the protocol, with the end game of eliminating EOA and moving the ecosystem to full account abstraction. So we are now at a point where we're finally making progress towards that goal.
Amazing. Yeah, Itamar, do you have anything to add?
So is the question why we are all talking about account abstraction now? Well, and more than 4 years ago, I think it's the convergence of actually many things. First, what happened, I think it's what happened is Yoav. Panel number 1000, congratulations. And I think I want to give credit also Julian, my co-founder. Basically, if you say the word account abstraction in a conference, Julian, my co-founder, or Yoav will appear. And they've been relentless about talking about it. But I think there were a few other things. The merge happened, which means suddenly when you have Vitalik on stage, it used to be merge, merge, merge. And now he will talk about, I think, the next big topic that he cares about, which is account abstraction. So suddenly everyone starts to put the focus on the next thing. But what we also see, of course, for 237, so standardization, you make it much easier for new companies to build around that. Before, I think the effort for Safe Team and Argent was much higher. We had to rethink everything around meta transaction to build our own system. The barrier to entry for new companies will be much lower. And we see it. We see, Telegram groups with hundreds of startups thinking about account abstraction. Because 4237 gives them a foundation. And I think also something around new chains and layer twos. When you think about it, it's very hard for layer twos to differentiate. It's like, one more scaling solution. And they even have to compete with sidechain or other L1 because they are all very similar. And so they started to look at other ways to differentiate. I think back earlier it was actually near, I think, as some form of account management that makes it easier to manage. And you have StartNet that build account abstraction as the only way. You don't have EOA. So that also put a lot more focus on that.
Yeah, okay, great. So let's talk about use cases, right? I think this is sort of like a lot of the promise. And like we said, maybe when EIP 4337 will be implemented, we'll finally know the true identity of Satoshi. One of these features of account abstraction. But what else? Like we were talking about gas optimizations or gas abstraction, which you started like back in the day with GSN, and there was I remember also Meta Cartel started with that, right? With like meta transactions, the ability to pay gas for someone else. So that's kind of like the very foundation or the very basic thing. I think like for me, I see the payment method of a subscription model, right? I pay for Netflix, I pay for Spotify, I pay for YouTube, and to bring that into crypto and Web3, that could be, the way to onboard the next million users. Okay, you don't need to manage your account. I will sponsor all of your transaction. You pay me $20, $30 a month, which is an interesting concept, right? So yeah, what else? What else are you guys seeing? What else are you dreaming about? Maybe short term and long term.
Maybe I take something that's not the usual, like, social recovery type thing, which is always mentioned. Something that I think maybe in the long term, but definitely at some point will become very relevant is hybrid custody, meaning that even though self-custody, like you being fully in control of your account, like no one else can censor, can do anything with your account, that's definitely valuable. I think most people coming into the space in the far future, they want to have someone that supports them managing their assets. They want to have someone that can intervene in case something malicious happens, or can help them recover their account if they lose their keys. And they want them this maybe with some kind of protection, so this third party cannot just run away with their assets, cannot just claim their account or something, but they don't want to have the weight of all the responsibility on their shoulders. They want to maybe pick and choose for certain things different trusted parties, and that's possible through account abstraction, where you can say every transaction is being checked by a third party, and if something malicious happens, it's kind of like a blocker. If there's like a time lock, the transaction gets freezed for maybe a day, and maybe I need to get an additional key. I think Arch is already implementing something similar, that if a transaction looks kind of shady, you need one key more to make the transaction. You can still do it by yourself. It's still self-custody, but you have maybe some third party that helps. Or especially recovery, like I think most people would be willing to have something like a bank, an insurance, something that they can go to if they lose their keys, or like their relatives can go to if they pass away, and can say, here's maybe my KYC, I'm really who I pretend to be, please give me back access to my account. And maybe then there's again like some bonds, some time locks, some kind of protection mechanisms that make it more trustless, but it's still something which people are used to from the traditional world, where they have someone that trusted parties they do actually trust. Like most people do trust banks for some reason. And like I think we need to bring this back in a way that still protects the properties that we want to achieve, which is we're not dependent on these third parties. We can always cut cords. We're not locked into a walled garden system. We can pick and choose between different service providers. And I think hybrid custody in the long term will be huge.
Yeah, I think what you just described is, I had like this vision way back of like, if we want to disrupt like all of finance, the foundations of finance is banks, right? And with account abstraction, I guess with multi-sigs and with these hybrid custodies, we can create like actual banks, just like they work in the regular world, only it's transparent. Like you said, you can cut them off. You're not dependent on them, and the possibilities and what you can implement, because it's code, it's pretty much endless, which is, super exciting. Mark?
Well, I think, first of all, the fact that you can build on top of, as we talked before about, having a closed box or something centralized, now you can actually build a whole business on top of those accounts. So for instance, with the Safe app, you have, accounting tools, invoicing. I guess nobody needs to ask permission, to build those things. So that's I think, a pretty powerful thing. In the future, somebody wants to build a social app, and he can ask for people to like give us your social graph. So I think it's more powerful than banking. It's really about digital identity. The fact that we can abstract away, what's happening behind the scenes, that also means privacy. A lot of the problems we have in crypto, there was the discussion in 2020 about blockchains, then it became side chains, then rollups, then L1s, then L2s. no user cares. Like users don't care about those terms. So this is a way to eliminate the discussion, give users the experience that they already know. That's not a use case, that's agnostic to all use cases.
Yeah, Yoav?
Yeah, so we can talk about many different use cases, but I think the most important thing to understand is that with account abstraction, your wallet can be as simple as you want or as complex as you want, and you can move between the two as you evolve without having to move your assets. You can change the implementation. So for a new user, what matters is that the user can rotate the key if he loses the key, or maybe the user adds devices to the account rather than keys, so that you have your phone in the account. You're not aware that there is a key somewhere in your phone, and so you can so the ability to move is quite important. And but then as you evolve, as you accumulate more assets and you get more comfortable with the blockchain, maybe you want to start adding features to your wallet. Now you have many assets, and let's say you have an NFT. You want to use this NFT in a game. You want to use this NFT as an object in the game, but you don't want to have, but you still have to guard the account because you also have expensive assets. So now maybe you can start adding keys with different authorizations, because with account abstraction we separate authentication from authorization. We can check the keys, but we can also decide what the key can do, which enable things like session keys that Argent also implemented, that allow you to have a key where you can give the key to your browser. Now the browser can sign on your behalf, so you can play the game seamlessly with your NFT, but the key in the browser cannot transfer your NFT or do anything else. So it lets you start adding features with higher granularity to your account.
Yeah, like I guess, is it working? Yeah. So another example would be like borrowing and lending NFT, right? I can allow you to play with my NFT in the game, but you cannot transfer it, which is like so many different possibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think maybe a word that maybe describes this is malleability, right? The ability to change something, and this is it's maybe a box right now, and then I'm adding a few features to it. I'm adding from all the sides, and it's super interesting. Do you want to add anything?
So I was planning to talk about session keys. Thanks, Yoav. But maybe to describe that, because we have that in testnet on StarkNet, and it can be used for so many things. So the first thought there was for games. If you lower transaction fees and play fully on-chain games, which ZK rollups can enable because computation is very cheap, you might need to sign every 5 seconds or every 10 seconds, which is very clunky. So you create a key, you say, okay, I authorize that game to sign transaction on my behalf for the next 30 minutes or an hour, but only with that contract, and I can only do these 5 actions and spend that much money. And so now you are literally playing the game, which instead of signing transaction. But you could imagine in the future, I could create a key that I give to my car, and that key can only be used with chargers. The counterparty needs to be a charger. If it's not in a registry of charger, that key can do nothing. So literally, whatever you can think about, we can do it. Inheritance is also a topic we're looking at. We can program logic to solve inheritance of crypto. So, which is related to your point, Lukas, around trusting a third party that cannot harm you.
Yeah, super cool. I don't know if you guys are listening, but we just solved, like, account abstraction is going to solve everything, including Satoshi's identity. So yeah, I want to talk about maybe, we're talking about this. We're talking about all the great and wonderful things that are going to be happening with account abstraction, but what do you think is actually overrated, right? And what do you think it might be underrated? And this time we can start from that side, so Yoav doesn't rug you again with your question.
There are challenges. Maybe I will not mention them all, and I leave some for the others. I think first, account abstraction, it's harder, I think, to build the dream experience we have in mind across chain. If you're an EOA, it's your EOA, you go anywhere, it's there, and you don't have to worry about anything. You sign transaction. if you want to start to create bespoke logic, you are deploying an account. It's a bit more involved. I think cross CVM, for example, you could do something decent, but even there, it's just harder. And that's why Argent, we are very opinionated. We want to create that amazing experience. We pick some areas, some chains that have native account abstraction, and we go for it. It's not impossible, but it's just higher barrier to entry to go for that.
Yeah. So I think what's overrated is that people think that it will solve that with account abstraction, all the security problems will go away. I don't think they will. I think that users will still get scammed. They will have better tools for defending themselves, but scammers are not going to disappear. They're also going to evolve. And and on top of that, we are adding some risk related to smart contracts. So there will be some security challenges that we'll still need to address. Hopefully, it does put us in a better place. It improves security, but it's not the end-all solution for all security problems.
Okay, what is underrated? You said overrated. What is underrated in account abstraction right now?
Well, as I said, I think people like to talk about fancy features, but they underrate the fact that they're able to add features to it on demand, or to evolve their account as they evolve. This is something that is seldom overlooked and is actually quite important. If you think about any account you used in Web 2, let's say you started with Gmail when Gmail was started, and initially it was used as an address just for basically for things that are going to spam you. But at some point, it becomes the center of your life, and then you need to do some different things. So I think it's underrated that you're able to evolve the account as you change the way you use it.
Yeah, I think that's actually like a great analogy. If Gmail was like fully open source, right? I have my email, like eylon@gmail.com, right? And then now someone in the ether, right, wrote Google Docs, right? And I can implement that automatically into, sort of like my workspace. I don't need anyone's permission. It's all open source. I can probably like sign a transaction or write a transaction and add these features into my wallet. And it's a very interesting concept actually. So yeah.
So I think right now there's not as many users of smart contract wallets as there are users of MPC wallets. I think it's still a bit of like the end game, in my opinion, is giving every user in the world a private key. Is billions of people will sign transactions, behind the scenes, handling all the business logic for them.
You're saying that they will have a private key?
The objective is that every user will have a private key on his phone, and he will sign transactions with it.
Okay, interesting. Do we all agree?
With smart contract wallets, you still sign transactions with a private key. You just don't in a contract. It's not EOA.
Yeah. Okay.
So how do we wrap it in a nice-to-use user experience? How we hide the complexity? That's still not figured out, and that's why almost nobody uses crypto on mobile. No, there's places where there's no PCs, and they use it on mobile. But I would say that for mass adoption right now, the mobile experience is not there yet. There's still not as many users on mobile as there are on desktop, or MetaMask desktop is still the leading wallet, right, in DeFi. I'm saying that this is still, the fact that we can separate the business logic from the blockchain and we can think about those abstractions is not making life easier right now. It's actually creating a lot more opportunities and still takes time to standardize.
Okay, so this is underrated?
I'm saying that right now, user experience on MPC is better.
Okay. Spicy take.
Curious why? What's different in terms of user experience? Why would MPC? I mean,
well, for institutions,
Yeah, for institution, I would tend to agree. Very large institutions tend to go to.
Yeah, I think right now MPC solutions really try to hide everything under the hood. And for a consumer, if you're using Zengo, it's frictionless. They don't care what technology it uses. They remove a lot of the friction. Fireblocks removes a lot of the friction. But the problem is that they all create their own MPC solutions. That's a big problem. Smart contract wallets just enable much more stuff. I think people will appreciate it more over time.
I think but it's important to know that the two are not contradictory, and you'll be able to. So you can have a smart account, and the smart account has different keys for different things. So maybe you have a key, maybe you have a recovery key that requires a ledger hardware wallet that you keep at the bank vault, and you use MPC for the day-to-day operations. So you add an MPC to your account abstraction wallet. And the MPC provides you with the same great experience that you are used to. And then if something happens with this MPC, and things have happened before, so if something like this happens, then at least you know that you have a recovery option.
Yeah, I totally agree. They can also they're not mutually exclusive. They're also, I think, agnostic to some extent. But MPC just doesn't have the standards that smart contract wallet. That's really the idea. Build the protocol, build the standard, create interoperability. This is also why L2s are fully composable. You can just move all the business logic between chains, stuff like that.
I think that's something we get asked a lot, like, is MPC a competitor for Safe? And I think it's important that we repeat this over and over. No, it's actually complementary. I actually think the holy grail will be if we find the best ways to combine them, both for retail but also for institutional, because they have different properties. The one is like more flexible, off-chain securities. One is on-chain, it's transparent. We need to just combine them too.
Yeah, I think if to touch on that, right, MPC can have pre-private key generation composability, and what we are doing is post-private key signature, I guess, composability. And I think the things that you can do with both of these things together is going to be very interesting in the future. And I think, Mark, to touch on your point, yeah, the fact that you can create a standard and for everybody to unite around the same standard it's a game changer. It's an unfair advantage that I guess account abstraction has over.
I really think that the business community only now starts to understand it. MPC was kind of dominating the adoption side so far.
Did you want to say something, Yoav? Huh?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so I guess the next question is what do you think are sort of the obstacles and the risks? What is preventing this from actually materializing? Where do we see the challenges? Where do we see? And this could be even political challenges, right? We're still, even though code is low, we still need to convince a bunch of people to maybe implement these things. Maybe you want to talk about that, Yoav. What is the process for ERC 4337? What is the process for maybe other EIPs that are sort of in the works?
Yeah. So one obstacle we keep encountering, and that's something we need to create more awareness for, is that some dApps don't play well with account abstraction because they were written with EOA in mind. So, for example, some dApps don't support EAP 1271 for signing with a smart contract. And of course, contract accounts cannot sign directly. You cannot just do an EC recover and get the same and get the account address. So as long as some dApps don't support it, users have to choose whether they use a smarter account, use account abstraction, or they use these dApps. So this is something that I hope we'll see changing. And some of them are actually actively trying to prevent contract accounts, and I think they get some false sense of security by checking TX origin, they don't want to be called by a contract. It's I think many of them added it when Flash loans started, because they were implementing protocols that did not work correctly when someone has a high balance, and they were hacked when Flash loan started. So their knee-jerk reaction was, let's prevent accounts from calling us. Now, it's false sense of security for various reasons. First of all, a miner could still attack you exactly the same way by creating a block that that uses the miner's liquidity for the attack. So it doesn't really prevent it. And also, there are EIPs that are going to change the way TX origin works. So at some point, a contract will be able to be TX origin. For example, with EIP 3074, it becomes possible to have code in TX origin. So I think it would be best if dApps start thinking about accounts as something that may have code and use the standards to enable that.
Yeah, interesting. Do you guys have anything to add?
I think the second issue, so what you have mentioned is really pure compatibility. Even when you reach that, one issue we see is that dApps have to build for the lowest common denominator, which is UA. So if you take the most simplest feature of account abstraction that I think we all have is multi-call or batching transaction. So this is actually amazing. If you go on StarkNet, ERC20 approved do not exist. Why? Because we put multi-call in the interface, which means every tab knows that they shouldn't do ERC20 approve, they should just batch everything. ERC20 approve, whatever action you wanted to take after that, whatever action you would, and then it's one-click experience. But on if you still have UA, dApps still need a UI that will work with UA, and they would tend to just do that. There are exceptions. So, for example, I remember at one was with Uniswap. If you would deposit funds in a liquidity pool, you would need 3 transactions: ERC20 approve of token A, ERC20 approve of token B, and then the deposit. They literally 3 transactions, each needs to be mined one after the other. And then what they did is that if they detect you are urgent or safe, they would make it a single one-click experience, which is amazing, but not all dApp will do that. So.
Yeah,
I mean, just generally about risks with account abstraction, something that we should just track and be wary of is if now every wallet is looking at account abstraction, says this is something interesting, let's create our own smart contract. Like first, then you have every wallet creating new smart contracts, create new security risks, which might lead to exploits, which might lead to loss of like trust in account abstraction. But it's also then, like if then we have a MetaMask smart contract wallet or account abstraction wallet, we have a trust account abstraction wallet, they might not be compatible. So you create an account with MetaMask, you cannot use it with any other wallet than MetaMask because Trust Wallet doesn't support MetaMask account abstraction wallets. So if this then is going the wrong direction, we will have these lock-in users again into one UI, which is exactly what we don't want in Web3. We want an account that's portable, that you can generate in MetaMask. You don't like MetaMask anymore, use Ledger, use whatever you like. And if you do this the wrong way, we get to there. So we need standardization, we need a lot of coordination. We also need to make sure that not every wallet is creating their own smart contracts. Like we at Safe built like a modular smart contract protocol so that most cases can be covered with that already. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's build on the same kind of foundations so that then we get the compatibility in the long run.
So I wanted to add regarding that. So first, yes, regarding the UI, we want to make it easy for the user to switch. But I also wanted to add that something that users need to be thinking about when they start using a contract wallet is how are they going to replace it later? It's something that is often overlooked. You look at all the fancy features that you are getting now, but you should also make sure that you can change the implementation later, and the wallet is not going to prevent that, because otherwise you get locked in. You get so you should think about how you're going to leave the wallet that you are starting to use now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you want to add something?
It should also not be the end goal that you then always have to change your implementation when you switch from one wallet to the other, right? Because that, I mean,
one blockchain to another.
Yeah.
Well, Lukas, I mean, it would be easier if we all use the safe.
That's one way to do it. Another one would be to have a standard around the storage, so that if you switch, if the user decides to switch between Argent and safe, it can be done safely, which currently is not the case. It's because currently they would step on each other's toes in the low part of the storage.
By the way, this is exactly why we're using a safe, and I think pretty much the entire industry, and also why we use the Argent contracts in the first place, because we really try to build on top of something that looked like a standard. I'm happy that there's not a lot of, there's really like a strong incentive that everybody will use the same piece of code. Like that is not the part that I think Argent makes money from, right? The open source contracts.
Yeah, but I think it will ultimately serve all the wallet developers if there was a standard, probably based on Diamond storage, that allows each wallet to have a different storage base. I mean, as a wallet developer, you don't want to make it so easy for your user to switch wallet, but you also have to think about the other direction of a user that is moving from the competitor wallet to yours. How would you ensure that it is safe, that the user is not compromised from the start? So it would serve everyone if we have a standard, and I'm actually thinking of maybe adding another standard for that, just to make this easier.
Yeah, I was going to ask who's running point on that, and I think it's you, Yoav, right? So if in 5 years we have competing standards, and you know that XKCD comics, right, of the competing standards, I think we may have sort of solved this in Ethereum largely, or like, and then if we have competing standards, then it's on you, yeah?
Well, I'm going to be involved.
Okay, I do want to leave some room for questions, but maybe like one sentence. If I'm building an app, I'm building something in the ecosystem, and I know that I don't care about what wallet my user is going to be using, because I'm building an app, I'm building either a game or a DeFi protocol. What should I know? What should I have in mind that about account abstraction that I should keep in mind while I'm developing it right now? Do you want to go, Itamar?
Yeah, I think so. You have mentioned those points. I think one, don't purposely block smart contract wallets. So don't try to do a transaction origin equal message sender. Two, make sure to use EIP 1271 to check signatures. And three, I would encourage to build a UI that adapts to smart account. You are likely to have 100 competitors doing exactly the same dApp than you. You having a 10x better UX because you leverage things like multi-call would be a big differentiator, and I think we will see a huge acceleration of adoption of smart accounts, and you should better be ready. Yeah.
I would maybe also say, as a dApp developer, think about the new type of users that are coming into the market, because this will enable like Web2-like experiences, onboarding, gas abstraction. Like you don't need to deal with all the technicalities. Maybe not for like the very high financial, high-value things, but this enables me more like social products, more cultural products, gaming that then it gets much more accessible to users. So plan to work towards this new wave of users. Will take probably 1 year until it starts picking up, because the tooling needs to get there, but I think it's a good place to look to.
Yeah, we need memes if we want to accelerate it, like very well. And I think like there's a lot of tweet threads, not enough memes, like actual memes on Twitter. That's what gets the people going. Did you want to add something, Mark?
I think it gets the investors going, but actually the users are just looking for friendly, useful, cheap, large variety of fun products they can interact with, whether it's financial or not. In some places there's no alternatives, so you want to really not talk about blockchains with those people. So I think Web3 as a concept, it's this idea that we can do a transaction, and instead of the very big value chain of people in the traditional finance, the whole payments industry, there's like a a long string of companies you need to go through to do a transaction, and week to a month wait until the money arrives and stuff like that. When you're doing a transaction in Web3, until smart contract wallets, it was just paying a fee to the blockchain. That's it. Now we need to think about the mechanics behind the scenes. Maybe I'm buying, contract data from the graph with that same fee. Maybe I'm doing something else in another Web3 network that, provides me a service like Safe. Like I maybe, issue an invoice, I pay a little bit to request the network. Again, it's a new business model.
Yeah, super interesting. So we do have a little bit of time for questions. Does anyone want to ask questions? Yeah? Are you going to be the runner?
Do we have a question? Yes. Go ahead. From Collider, it's not fair. Go ahead.
So a question I got asked multiple times in a post-account abstraction world for Itamar and for Lukas, where does it position you guys, where Itamar, you said like the barrier to develop new applications is getting lower. So how do you see yourself positioned like just in that world?
Thank you. Lukas, you want to take it? Itamar?
I mean, yeah, what we want to do is that we kind of encapsulate what we've built now with Safe, the kind of end-user application, and provide it to developers so that they don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel everywhere with the protocol, with like all the logic that we've already have there. So it's just getting much easier to create like smart contract wallets, multi-signature wallets, whatever. Like, I'm not sure if that was the question you were going towards, but like that's how I think it will get easier for developers to do that.
Yeah, and I think, we are happy with the move towards that. We want more use of Account Abstraction because then dApps will think about it and build a better experience for our users too. So we're not too concerned. We have many years of experience there. We are now finally in a place where we can just execute. Most of the roadblocks are out of the way. And again, it's about the feature you build. What we are doing now is just, okay, we can program the account. What will you program? What are the services you'll build around? Argent is a lot of infrastructure to really make your life easier. Topics like fraud monitoring that Lukas mentioned, cross-signing transaction for users, etc. So there's a lot around that. Yeah.
I think lowering the bar is a... Sorry.
Go ahead, Yoav, you're the man.
Yeah. Go. Please. No. So I think lowering the bar is good for all the wallets because it's not a zero-sum game. We're actually expanding the cake. It would be like saying that if we make more roads, then it becomes that we lower the barrier for cars. But no, we're actually it's good for the industry. It's good for all the car manufacturers.
I agree, and I want to thank this amazing panel. Thank you so much, Itamar, Yoav, Luka, Mark, obviously from Fuse, and Eylon for moderating this. Thank you all so much.